Well, hello there, magic monsters. Welcome to the stream. This time I did not forget to bring my microphone down at the very start. So that's something. How are you all doing today? How are you one doing today? Good, I hope. All right, so as I promised on ye old Discord, I would start by showing the cool camera shake. That is really cool. And shakes the camera and shakes these little things down here. But I didn't set it up, so we gotta go over here first. And there's more audio now, by the way. Check this out. Ooh, fancy, right? So we do have to find the puppy, but the puppy's right over here. So we can probably return and finish the quest before the goblin finishes talking. Ooh, yep, there we go. All right. So check this out. We got this going on there. This is a magic spell of sorts that comes, and so if we stand in front of it... Hey, wait a minute. I thought... What happened? Well, that's just not fair. That's not fair at all. It's supposed to be getting hit. We're not getting hit. Why aren't we getting hit? I have a feeling that this is because Unity crashed and I hadn't saved. And so something that I set is no longer set or saved or something. All right, let's quickly get into this, figure this out, because that's just frustrating and annoying, isn't it? All right. We are called player, and, well, let's just look. Oh, I should have saved. Oh, well. We are going to look at the prefabs, figure the heck out this thing. I can't talk. All right, particles. Magic Ball. Magic Ball has a script called Magic Ball. We will Magic Explosion. Let's just quickly look at the script. So what we're going to do here is confirm that it has on it the rigid body. It does. All right. Well then it should just work. So I don't know what the heck. I just don't. It was working perfectly fine. I was very excited to show you all this. So let's see. Debug.log. Magic ball hit. I need to put in a $sign. Other.gameObject.name. And we'll just make sure it's actually hitting something. The player themselves should be fine. Where is the player? Up here. The player has all this, and they should be hittable. They were hittable yesterday. I didn't have to add anything else to the player to make them hittable. But this time I will remember after we rescue that cute little puppy that I should press the save button so that we don't have to do this again. All right. So we'll hit the save button.
You have found my cube. I was so worried because I am very hungry.
Hey, look, Magic Ball hit player. All right. So Collider is working. Oh. Interesting. That was it. Infinity Collider or player. That's weird. I must have changed this and never tested it, because that's not something that would have changed if Unity crashed. Anyways, let's watch the magical shakes now. Alright, if we just stand in front of it. There we go. So now we got a couple things going on. Actually, a few things. We have our characters who get hit will have the slow condition added. They also take a little bit of damage. They also shake a little bit, and the whole camera shakes a little bit. How's that for a cool effect? Do you like it? It's fun, right? So it gives you feedback that you got hit for the global mini shake. It's not a huge shake, just a little bit of a shake. And then the individual will shake too, so you know who got hit as their health goes down. So that's nice. Right? I think that's nice. Anyways, so that's not why we came. That's not, I mean, that is part of why we came. But then we can heal. All right. Why we came was to figure out why the heck these boxes aren't loading properly. So this is the inventory module. The inventory module, I should say, the inventory module is the one opinionated model that in the bunch right now. It's oh, thanks, Tech Dave. You don't need to use it unless you want a drag and drop visual inventory system like this, and you won't use it because that's what this is. It gives you a drag and drop visual inventory system. And so what you can kind of see is, you know, you can pick up items and then the item is over like this, and you can give it to people. You can pick up helmets and then it's here, and then you can throw it into the world and it just does its thing. If it was not a cube, it would probably have rolled. You can pick up leather armor, throw that into the world and see it go down. So, you know, you can do all this stuff. You can give it to the people, you can give it to the next person, you can give it to a person by typing 4. That's just code I made. But that's what that is, that you could pick things up and see them here and then throw them or give them to a person. And then the treasure boxes use the loot box system. And the loot box system is something you could use without this inventory system. You can use that with any inventory system. All the loot box does is create, here we go, I'll show you the loot boxes. Actually, let's find the right one. The one that's attached to this is 9. This one is this one, and so this one basically has this is the right one, right? Level 1 chest, I think so. Anyways, so this one basically says it's going to have a flaming helmet of power, and then random of 4, random of 7, random of 9. So in other words, random stuff. It's going to have 2. I think this is not the right. Oh, I see, because there are. Okay, let's see. So there are 3 things. There's some basic armor, so it's going to have a couple armors, then the basic weapons, and it's going to have a couple weapons randomly generated, and basic gear, just random stuff. Again, random of 11. So you've got the option of choosing one thing, multiple things, or just random. So if I take one off, it's going to be random of 10. See? And that's good stuff. So there's a lot of stuff here. I'm not going to go into details right now. You can test generate loot, and you can see it's going to generate loot. And there you go. So it's got, every time you click it, it generates more loot. So the idea is that in your game, when you open a box, you will generate random loot. That's what the loot box system is. It will work with any inventory system, but for some reason, I'm having an issue with this one. And so if we look at our small box button, small box button has the game loot box demo, which, if we look at the code, inherits from game loot box. So this is the game loot box script you'd be using, and you can create your own. So in this case, we're going to override handle loot because we are using the Infinity PBR game modules inventory system, which is that visual drag and drop. And so we need to handle the loot differently. Now, your inventory system, if you use the loot boxes, will handle it differently. You know, you're going to have to decide how to do that. Handle loot gets called when we generate loot. So when you call generate loot, you first check to make sure if it's already generated and you can't overwrite, then you're not going to do anything because it's already generated. That's often the case when you want someone to open a box twice and see the same stuff inside. Otherwise, you're going to get a list of objects, and it's basically going to take that loot box, that button that we were clicking earlier, and it's going to generate loot and put that into an item object list, and then it's going to clone that list, and then we're going to say that we generated, and we're going to handle the loot. Now, handle the loot does nothing without overriding, so you are required to override it because the reality is I don't know what you want to do with that loot. I don't know how you're going to display it. I don't know what you're going to do with it, but you know, sky's the limit. You can do whatever you want with it. And so that's where we go into the handle loot. Handle loot here is going to get our component box manager, which is the manager for the inventory system, any box that has items, essentially. we're going to get a delete list because for each one we're going to try to put it in that box. And if we can't put it in the box, we're going to delete it. So the boxes will have a limited amount of size. So in this case, it's got 6 by 8, so 48 different squares. Each object, each item has a different size. So this one probably has like 2 by 3. And so it can only fit so much. And so it's going to try to fit every item top down into the list, with the most important ones on top. So if there's anything you absolutely need to be in the loot box, like a quest item, put that first. And then it's going to delete anything that could not fit. It's going to give you a little debug log on that. I'm going to update that to make it a message, though. In fact, can we do that now? Did I do that? I did not do that yet. So no, we're not going to do it now. We'll do it another time. And then it's going to delete all the stuff we couldn't put in there. That's all it does. That's what Game Loot Box does. And that seems to be working. See, we got 3 things in the list. This is set to generate on awake. So if we do this again, click again on awake, it's going to generate the loot. You can choose to generate this on awake or generate this when something is opened. For instance, maybe the other box is a lucky treasure box, and that one has a Game Loot Box demo generate item modification demo. Iced coffee. And this one takes into effect this luck value. Now this is something you'd probably pass in from your stats, but for the demo it's just a slider. And for this one, we're going to make some refactorings at the same time. Why not? For this one, I'm going to do all these vars first. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get distracted. For this one, we've got same thing. We're going to generate items. So this is going to overwrite the generate items on Game Loot Box. Generate. No. Where is it going to overwrite? It overwrites somewhere. Generate items. Generate item modification demo. Loot box, generate loot. It has a handler. So it's the handler. I handle loot boxes handler. So you can use the standard one, just generate stuff, or you can use the one you pass into it. In this case, we're passing this handler into it. It's a I handle loot box. That's why it's a handler. Its name is Chelsea. And then we go into this, and in this we have our normal spawn chances. If we actually look at the loot box itself here, it's going to say if the handler is not null, then add the handler generate items. Otherwise, add this generate items. And in generate items down here, it's just going to generate them. That's all it is. It goes through the method we wrote to generate items, and I'm going to refactor things as I go. And now I use var. And that works perfectly fine. It generates items. And on the modification one, it does the same thing, but it also checks to see if the player is lucky. And if the player is lucky, then it gets better stuff and more stuff. So it's just another modification you can do for your own project to figure out if you want to generate different stuff based on different things. Anyways, the point is that on our handle loot, everything seems to be going well. As you can see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things in here. Oh, and Unity's gonna crash on me. I shouldn't have changed any script while it's running. It keeps doing this, and it's just frustrating because I keep accidentally saving scripts while Unity is running, and then now I opened the wrong one up, so now we've got 2 projects. I'm gonna take off my jacket, damn it. There we go. All right, so Unity keeps crashing on me. That's what's going on. It's very frustrating. I'm very frustrated by it. I'm sure you can tell. I should probably keep this project open. I just quit, but I should probably have kept it open because we might need to refer back to it. Anyways, so now let's go back to this small loot box, wherever it may be. Probably the inventory canvas. No, where is it? Maybe the canvas. Nope, nope, nope. Oh, yeah. Is this it? Nope, that's just the panel for it. The panel looks like that. And you can make that look however you want. But the important bit is that this is that 6x8 grid, and this is where the items will show up. The larger panel, it looks like this. It's bigger. But, you know, you could do all sorts of different things. You could make it look like a tabletop. So your inventory can be on top of a table. So you make that look like the tabletop. I'm pretty sure I need to make a demo on it, but I'm pretty sure you can even just move the camera in and spawn the stuff on the table and have it kind of live in 3D. So that's pretty cool. And then let's see, where was the small box though? Small box button. Here we are. All right. So we make this live on the button itself. That's fine. It lives on this button. These are the two buttons, but we're going to make it live later in an actual box. The button will just open that box, but first we need to get it to work because now I'm not going to change the script while it's playing this time. All right, so it's loaded 4 things. We're going to open up the small box and we're going to see 5 things, and we are also going to see that now there's only 1 thing here, so that's weird. So let's go and close it. We got only a mage staff. Let's load it up again. And oh well, there's more stuff. So let's just try that one more time to see the weirdness. I'm sure this is a quantum issue or something. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A helmet, staff, boots, sword, and armor. And now there's less than that. I see a staff, helmet, sword, leather armor, and an axe. No boots, though. So clearly there's something wrong here. And if we look at the box manager, which has all the stuff in it, we should see in here, we should see some stuff, maybe. Staff. So, you know, we see the things that it was spawned in the world, in the game rather. We see these spots being taken up by stuff. So they all have stuff in them. But it doesn't match the loot box down here. And so what I'm wondering is why the heck is it being generated again? So let's just look into this. This is the button. Oops. This is the button down here. And when it's clicked, box manager got clicked, loot demo. All right, good. Box manager got clicked, loot demo. Let's see, box manager. See, I definitely need to update this because there shouldn't be a demo method inside this. But that'll be for after we get it working. Then I'll go back in and fix it all up. And probably redo most of it. So we're going to generate loot every time we get clicked. And this is where it's probably happening, but it shouldn't be happening because we should be not overwriting. Let's see. Well, there's no option to overwrite. Huh. Oh. Overwrite is true. Why is that the case? It shouldn't be true. It should be false. But this indicates that my goal was to make it true. Well, I can change that later. Okay, we'll change it back. And on this one, we'll just make it false. All right, so that should stop that from happening. Let's see if that worked. How's everyone doing today? Don't forget to like and subscribe. I appreciate it. All right. So we look at our small box button. We've got some loot generated, 5 things. Helmet, 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 small axe and shield. All right, helmet, 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 small axe and shield. Good. Close it, load it. All right, did that solve it? This is the inventory system, by the way, where you can click things and move them around. And if you click over and replace something, they'll replace it. You can't replace over 2 things. You can't go over the edge like that because it doesn't work, but you can do that. You can do this. You can do that. You can do this other thing. You can do all sorts of things like that. And of course, you can pass them to players and other things like that. And also, you can pick up stuff. So if I pick up a chain armor and go into my small box here, I can now place that in the box. And we can see somewhere that it should be there. Well, it's going to be in here. But that's interesting. I would think that would now show up in this. Close. Open it. Is that where everything was? Can't remember. I should have paid attention. Let's move that there. Close it. Open it. Yeah. Okay. Let's add something else. We're going to add a helmet. We're going to add the helmet there. So it's going to be 3 helmets in a row with the axe down there. Close. Open it. All right. Now we're going to try saving because I actually did expect it to show up here, but it doesn't appear to be. So I'm going to save and reload, and we're going to see what happens. So let's save. And actually, that's not going to work. We're not saving this information. So we need to make this savable. Well, let's just see what happens. All right, I saved. We're going to stop. We're going to do a hard reload rather than pressing the reload button. I think it's the same thing in the end, but let's look. We have different things there. Open the small box, very different things. Okay, well, let's make this save first. That would be a more pressing thing before we continue debugging. And so to make something save, this is a new stuff here. We are going to say savable on the object. And we're going to do the same on this. And then that gives it a save ID. It's going to be pretty much unique. I think the chances of it not being unique are something like 1 in quadrillions or something. So it's unique. And then we are going to say that these are savable. So the box manager needs to be savable, and the game loot box demo needs to be savable. But we're going to make game loot box savable. So I have game ID, I savable, and savable is going to have a few things here. Implement those. I'm going to put all these down there. Now some of these are going to be used. We already have the get game ID, which is important. It's used here, so we don't see it down here. Savable object ID. That's what we're going to do. We're going to do game ID for that. So in this, we're just going to pass back the game ID. And then in the load state and save state, we're going to do virtuals here. Because these are things that someone might want to override in their own implementation of this. But for now, we are going to make ours here, and people can override. So we're going to do a public struct game loot box save data. And that's going to have, what do we need to save? We need to save probably a few things. We need to save the game ID. We need to save, this is supposed to be private. All right, so we need to save the game ID, the loot box ID. Generate on awake does not need to be saved. So let's start with these two. Where'd it go? Oh, yeah. Public string that and public string UID or game loot box UID. What was it? Loot box UID? Something like that. I was so close. So close. And then what else do we need to save? We don't need to save that. We don't need to save this. We can remove the formerly serialized as prints statements. And that's why it wasn't visible, because I hide in the inspector. We are going to save the item object list and the dictionaries. And that's that, I believe. We'll double check. Public item object list, or game item object list. Game item object list. Is that what it is? It is. We're going to change this to be loot box inventory. All right. And the dictionaries. All right, and then on the load state, we're going to get our data. This is going to be from JSON utility from JSON with the type is going to be game loot box save data, passing this JSON encoded state. And then we're going to assign things. So game ID equals data.gameID. LootboxUID equals data.lootboxUID. And we are going to say that, like, generally, I think lootboxUID isn't going to change throughout the game, but it's possible that it does. Similarly, I don't think game ID will change throughout the game. In fact, it shouldn't. So maybe we don't need to save that because it should just stay the same. In fact, that's the whole point of it. So let's not even encourage people to do that. We'll remove that entirely. But the loot box UID might change because maybe something in the game happens, and so you change the loot box ID. Maybe something good happens or bad happens, and now they're going to get better stuff or worse stuff. And rather than using the loot box system for that, you just want to change the whole loot box. That makes sense. It seems easy. And then data item object list is actually now loot box inventory. Equals data.item object list, and then dictionaries equals data.dictionaries. And let's change this to be loot box inventory. All right, and then we're going to go backwards on the save state. So we're going to say var data equals new game loot box save data, and then inside here we're going to say loot box UID equals loot box UID, comma, loot box inventory equals loot box inventory, comma, and dictionaries equals dictionaries, no comma, and then semicolon there, and then return data. So we're basically putting the things we want to save into the struct, and then returning that. It's going to be saved as JSON by the system automatically. When we load the state, it's going to come back to us as a JSON encoded string. That's why we deserialize it from JSON here and then reassign the values. That's the save system, so this should save now. And let's see, do we need to save the box manager? And I believe the answer is yes, we do. So we're going to do a very similar thing here. It's going to be iSaveable. And in fact, we can kind of copy and paste a little bit. So let's do that, because why the heck not? I'm a fan sometimes of copy and pasting. I do think it's important to write your own stuff from time to time, and not just but by type it out is what I mean. So even if you're copying a chat GPT or a tutorial, type it out, because that muscle memory is super helpful. So we are going to do this. We are going to ignore these. We're going to update that. We're going to get a new game ID. We're going to add a game ID to this. And so we will copy this as well. Game ID. Is up here. All right. Box manager is going to be up here. And for this one, that's gotta be saved. Do we just hide it? Nah. So on this one, we are going to just call game ID at the awake. That will populate the value, because right now it will be empty and we don't want it to be empty. That's not coolio. So we're going to just populate the value. And and then let's see. Yeah, so that method basically does this. It says if it's null or white space, then, or we're forcing new, then make a new one and return it. Otherwise, just return it. And then we need a game loop box save data. Instead of this, we're going to call this a box manager save data. And what are we saving here? We are saving spots and inventory items. We should probably serialize this. Serialize field. That's where it should be saving. So that's going to be important. Okay, so we got inventory items and spots. The rest is not needed. So let's just, where are we? Right here. Inventory items and then spots. All right, and then we're going to do the same thing here. So spots equals data dot spots, and inventory items equals data dot inventory items, and make sure we have the right type here, and a semicolon there. Similar here, we're going to say spots equals spots, comma, and inventory items equals inventory items. So that should save and load that. We've got our game ID being populated. Let's just see if it works. All right, so we have our game ID. It did not get populated, but it will on awake. We can add a validate for this too. There we go. So it's populated now, and now the problem is it's going to disappear, and that's why we need to add a validate for this, because we don't want it to disappear, because if it disappears, then it's going to be different next time, and that's not correct. So we have a non-validate on validate here, and we're going to do the same thing here. So on validate, all it does is call game ID, which forces it to, if it's not already populated, to populate. So we will throw that right here. Should probably make this all virtual too, but that's okay. There we go. So that's that, and that's that. Everything should be savable now. So let's press play and see what happens. And we're also got the inventory items exposed here. So if we just collapse all these that we're not interested in at the moment, which one are we looking at? I want to see this one. All right, we can ignore savable as well. So now inventory items list has 4 things in it. It should be the 4 things that we have here. Helmet, chain, staff, staff, helmet, chain, staff, staff. That's great. And then if we press our open small box, we can see that. Now, I should see one disappear. Good. So we see now the chain is no longer in there. It's now in the ether. Hello, Sinistro TV. How are you? Sinistro TV. I'm doing well. And as you can see now, it switches because right here it's switching because we are picking this out of the inventory and putting it somewhere else. Right now it's in this item held. Now it's in the world. But if we pick up a long spear, open that, and then we put it down. Oh, long spear doesn't even fit in this inventory. It's too big. Let's close that. Get rid of that. Let's take a chain armor small axe. That's small enough. And put that in there. Now it's right there. Okay, so that's good. We've got a spear, axe, and things. So we're going to put them all over here to the left. We're going to close it. We're going to save. And we're going to reload. And we're going to see that there is a bug. All right, well, that's good. Missing object. Blackboard has been destroyed, but we were still trying to... Were we? That doesn't seem correct. Fade to black. Wait a minute. If Blackboard is destroyed, then how is this one happening and then sending it to this one? Right? Saying the game object's been destroyed. Let's find out. Quick null check on the debug. We'll see if that happens again. Now it did save it, so we should be able to check both things here. It should load fine, yeah, and then Oh, that is not right. So it did not save. You know what we didn't save? Generated. Didn't we? We didn't save generated. This is why it's important. Just save the stuff you want to save. If you don't want to save it, then don't save it. But if you want to save it, you should save it. And in the loot box, game loot box, we have generated, and that needs to be part of our save state here. So public bool, and this is actually a good example of what to do when you add new data or new fields to your project that you want to save. This is it. All you gotta do is this. And if there is no data for that specific thing, it might not, it will actually show up as null. So if when I load the data, this is going to be null. So you might need to check on that, you know, handle what happens when it shows up for the first time. In this case, we're just going to ignore that part. So now there's a whole lot more in this box than there was before. And as you can see, it's all over the place. So it's messed up. So I'm going to have to basically start over from the save. So let's go back to our other scene. We'll go to new character. Debug start. Alright, let's load up our small box. We have 2 helmets, 2 axes, and a chain mail. Small box button. Alright, and this is our thing, and we've got those there. Okay, so close that, save it, reload. Let's see this bug. Alright, well that time it wasn't null, so I don't know what happened the time before. But our small box is, where was it? I keep forgetting. It's in the buttons, right? Inventory buttons. There it is. Alright, good. We have the same things. If we load it up, we have the same spot. So let's just... Interesting. Well, now it's just saying drop object. Well, that's different. Why is it saying drop object? Oh. Well, there shouldn't be... Oh, it's just returning because there's no item held. Okay, so that's just a debug issue. Ignore that then, but we should be picking up objects is the thing. It's weird that we're not all of a sudden, since we were a second ago. So if we do that, we're going to drop object. We only drop the object if there's an item held, otherwise we do nothing. Well, what the heck? Let's see. And now we've got a bunch of bugs. Yeah, so I don't know what this thing is. Objects are trying to be loaded during a domain backup. This is not allowed. And honestly, it doesn't happen all the time. It happens randomly. I can't reproduce it consistently. Like it just happened that time. I don't know why. So now it didn't happen. So, okay. Well, whatever. Alright, we got the stuff. Alright, now we're not able to pick things up, which is interesting. Isn't it? Now we can pick things up. That's interesting. Let's check out. Let's see if our stuff is in the right place. So we're going to pause. Game UI. So we have all of these things, and we should see in spots 1-1 a helmet, and we see a helmet. But that's missing. All right, so this is an update I'm going to have to make. I mean, the reality is, if I talk it through while sipping on this iced coffee, ASMR. If I talk it through, the reality is I think I can do this better. So let's quickly look into our spots and see what spots is, because I need to remind myself it's been a while. Go to file spots. Spots is basically a grid. it's a Y by X, rows by columns, which I know is backwards. So I did that wrong. But it's too late now. I could just change it to row and column. Yeah, let's do that. How about that? We're going to change this to row. And we're going to change X to... where's X? We're going to change this to column. Column. And it is top down. It starts in the top left. Alright, and then for some of these other things, we might be able to change this. So this is going to be row N and column N, column N. Just making things better. So this is all the refactoring phase at this point, y'all. Alright, so we have a bunch of rows. And each inventory row is a bunch of columns. And each one of those is a spot. And that spot is going to have a boolean on whether it's filled and a game object in-game object. So what I think we can do, the in-game objects now have a game ID. When I built this, they didn't. So I didn't know what each specific item was. They all now have a UID that refers back to their scriptable object parent, the one that they came from, but they have a game ID because, of course, items can be changed at runtime. You could add different attributes to them. You can add different data to them. You can do all sorts of different things, whatever you really want, you can do to them. And so now there's going to be a game ID attached to them. So I don't think I need to store this at all. So what I think I need to do is have a new thing here. We're going to say public game ID equals, or yeah, game. We'll just game ID equals, no, oh, it's a string game ID, and then we're going to do public bool is filled is going to be game ID, or a string dot is null or white space game ID. And we're going to pass true if this is not empty. And honestly, the rest doesn't matter, because our in-game object is going to be the lists object. So I guess we do need a reference to our list, and that's where I was hoping that some things could know what they're in, but they don't. So we need to have a reference to our list. So we're going to say public game item object list is going to be inventory, and then we're going to say, I'm going to put some notes here too. This is the game ID of the item in this spot. Returns true if game ID is not null, so we are filled. And then this is the inventory where the items are currently stored. And then we're going to do in-game object, public game object in-game object. In fact, we're going to, where does this get used? Does it ever get used? Ooh, how did I come up with that menu? Usage, we have all sorts of these. Okay, so we're going to do a few things. This is going to be a little bit of a head spin for a little bit, because I'm going to break everything and then make them back together. So we're going to change this to in-game object. And then I'm going to see what the heck we're doing with this. All spots are in-game object. First spot, can place object. All spots are empty, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I'll have to dig back into that in a bit. But we're going to change that to in-game object, and then we're going to change this to be or maybe we're not. Hold on. Let's change it back. And then is filled is going to be that, and we're going to delete this. but we're just going to comment it out for now. We'll come back and delete it later. And then we're going to see where the errors are. And then we're just going to go is filled and is filled. And we'll look for the case sensitive is filled. And right there. We're going to go and refactor the hell out of all of this. Well, this is a incorrect use. Oops. Cancel. We're going to change this to, this is a grid button. Is this button filled with an item? Button is filled. Is going to be is filled question mark. So if the panel spots equals null, then return false. Otherwise, return spots. Oh, okay. Well, we can make this shorter. So this is basically saying, hey, if there are no spots yet, so if this hasn't been set up, then it's going to return false because the spots haven't been set up. Otherwise, we're going to return whatever the thing is here. So Corey, Corey's asking, very good question and very good memory. Did I get a definitive answer if a list item can be checked for a parent object? And the answer is no. ChatGPT told me this, but it explained it in such a way that I understand. Essentially, the way I understand it is the object just doesn't have a reference to its parent at that state. So there's just no possible way for it to know, so you have to tell it. But you can tell it, and that's not so bad. All right, let me write a note here. And we're going to change this to is button filled. In fact, why don't we just do this? That seems like a lot easier. All right, and then we'll make a note, say button is not filled if the spots haven't been set up. They're null. Or if the spot is not is filled. All right, and we're doing something here, right here. There we go. Is filled. All right, that should solve those. All right, let's go back to where we were. All right, so the inventory spot is now game ID is filled, that, and the item reference to the actual item, not a clone. We are not going to need this anymore. Let's see, or are we? Let's just quickly look at some of these. We're on the spots, and this is going to be, okay, put held item. Is if there's RA9, we need to save it temporarily as a clone, then remove it first. So temp item, if existing inventory spot is not equal to null, then temp item equals the spot item's clone. Remove that item from inventory. All right, this can be made more simple for sure. So essentially what this part is doing, it's saying, okay, this is in the put held item, so that's when an item's floating around on the screen. And when you need to put it in the inventory, it's saying, hey, there's already an existing inventory spot there. So we need to get a clone of that, what's there, and then remove that from inventory spot, and then put the thing we're holding down, and then pick up the clone, essentially. So you're swapping it out, but you need to make a clone to the process, because if you don't make a clone and then you delete it, then you'll delete it from where you were holding it to, which would be bad. So we make a clone. So essentially this is we need to pull this a different way. Why do we have a bug here? Is filled. All right. So we're gonna, the spots is going to reference the inventory. So when we say public game item, game object item, so we're gonna make this a property. So make a capitalized thing now, and then we will go back and remove that later. We're gonna say public game item object item, and this is going to give us our inventory dot get by game ID. So essentially, instead of holding the item on the spot itself, which is what we were doing on every spot, which kind of makes no sense because every spot of an item, if an item takes up 3 spots, then all 3 would have that item, which isn't completely logical. Now, when we call the item, we're just going to get by the game ID, so it's going to be the item that's in the inventory, so it's always just stored in one place. And then the in-game object, I need to figure out where that's, what's grid clicked. This is a good one. All right, when the grid is clicked, the inventory is up, you click a spot on the grid. We're going to call this row N and column N. First, if we have an held item, we'll try to put it down. All right. So if we couldn't put it down, or we don't have a held item, if we have a held item and we couldn't put it down, there's nothing left to try, so we return. In other words, let's like it's red because you clicked off the screen or you clicked on something, there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing's going to happen. You can't do that. If the click spot is not filled, then we have nothing left to do. If the click spot is not filled, not sure why that would be the case, but all right. And then pick up the held item at this spot. So this is where we say spots, row N, column N, gets the item. And so this is the game item object that we're getting from the inventory. And the in-game object is going to be in-game object. So apparently at some point we set that. I guess that makes sense. There can probably be a list of those too, actually, now that I think about it, but we'll do one thing at a time. If you can't pick up the item, then you return. Otherwise, we're removing from the inventory and spots the item, and then do that. All right. There's a lot going on here. I'm going to break the hell out of this, and I'm going to have to put it back together. I don't think I'm going to finish this on this stream because it's probably going to be royally broken before. But we'll see. We'll see how far I get. All right, so that's this. Remove the item from the reference inventory, game item object, and we're going to call this game item object, and call this game item object. Be very explicit. All right, and then spots. Remove item from spots, and then remove from the inventory. So this is going to be a little bit easier now because we know that the game ID there. So we're going to say inventory items dot remove exact, and it's going to be the game item object. Remove. We also have remove game ID where we pass in the game item object dot game ID. Both would work. In fact, I think remove exact was removed exact. Wait a minute, this is on the game item object list. Oh yeah, it does. So if removed by game ID, it ends up doing the exact anyways. It just does an extra step where it searches for that game ID. So we'll do the remove exact. There we go. And then we don't have to do this. That's a little easier. Remove from spots, remove from the inventory list. All right. That's a little bit better. We are broken in places. All right, let's see how many different red errors we have now. All right, this is remove item from spots. Run this on all methods to ensure that users don't need to run it at all. Yeah, so this is just basically says, hey, do the setup. And if it's already done the setup, then it doesn't do anything, I believe. If already set up and we've set up, then otherwise we do this stuff. 19 usages. Call that everywhere. Where was I? I have no idea where I was now. A lot of broken stuff here. So maybe it's add item to. So we do that. Cache the values of the item object, the height and the width. And this is going to be game item object. This is going to be row n and column n. Okay, in-game object equals null. All right, so the height and the width equals get those, and then the spot is get inventory spot, all the spots at that area. So the starting point, and then go into the right and down all the other spots, and then we're going to say spot item equals game ID. So not that anymore. Now spot.game ID equals game item object.game ID. So we don't do this anymore. And then if there's no in-game object, then continue, meaning there's no physical object. Otherwise, we set that to the in-game object. All right. That is that. And what's this one up here? Similar. Remove item from spots. So change this game item object, be more explicit. We do the setup just in case. Vars all around. Vars for everybody. Whoops. Even you. All right. Spot Y is going to be all this. So we're going to call this get row, get spot in row, and get spot in column. All right, and then spot in row. Thank you, Ryder, for suggesting such normal things. Spot in column. All right. So the spot in the row, spot in the column, and we're going to assume those are doing normal things. For each spot, remove it. So, so what we're really going to say is inventory spot.clear. And we're going to create this. So it can clear itself. All this really means is that game ID equals empty. And I guess in-game object equals null as well. Okay, clears the spot, i.e. makes it so it is empty again. All right. So that is that. I did add one bit that maybe we don't need, so I'm going to put a note here, Jan 24, 2023. This may not actually be needed or wanted. Added it because it made sense, but maybe it doesn't. We'll see. All right. So for each spot, we're going to clear it. We could make this into a link statement, but we're not going to. We could make this into one line. Aside from the setup, we could make this into one line, but we're not going to because this is a lot of stuff to put in one line. So add game object to list. All right, so where does this come into play? Items in spot group. Items in spot group. Where does this come into play? Put held item and set hover group. Ooh, okay, let's look at put held item. Right here. All right, let's go through this. If the item is held, then hey, there's chats. Can Andrew fix all of these errors during the stream? Oh, yes. It's true. However, if the errors are complex or numerous, it may not be possible. Wow. Did you say thanks, Captain Obvious? I asked it once. I said, hey, I hope that people are nice to you because I feel like being nice to a machine, and I feel like, maybe people should be trained to be nice to machines. And it basically said, I live to serve. That's essentially what it said. I don't care. It's just my job is to give you information. You can talk to me however you want. And then it called me a bitch. So, that's how it goes. All right. So here we're going to get the height and the width of the item that's held on the screen. If we don't have an item held, then we'll return. So this is going to be row N and column N. Column N. All right. And then if there's no grid on panel, what is this? If row N and column N. So if row N plus O, it's basically saying checking the size. So that's where I know. Will return false if the panel grid does not extend beyond the bounds given row N and column N are the top left of the item and the height and width are the size. All right, that makes sense. Grid on panel. So if the grid's not on panel, then return false. We're going to check to make sure the item can actually fit on this spot without going outside of the panel. And populate the item in the spot if there is one. Existing items equals 0. Existing inventory spot is null. Existing items, existing inventory spot. Okay, so this should give us a list of all the items that are in a specific spot, or area rather. So row N and column N. All right. Var first object. We need to say that. All right. So the first object in the inventory spot is null, and found objects is a new list of game objects. If the size is greater than the edges, limit and the height and or width. All right, that seems fine. And then what's all this? Var. So this is going to be row count. We'll do row index and then column index. All right. So this is basically going through all of the rows and columns. Can we make this easier? Maybe. Let's ask ChatGPT since we're talking about the myth, the legend, the AI themselves. I already have a chat going here with random stuff. As you can see, I do talk to it. I like to ask, can this be made shorter? And then see what it says. Can this be made shorter? And see what it says. So what I'm thinking while it's talking is that it can. I figured that. But will it be easier to read? Oh yeah, the for each would make sense. I never did for eaches back then. Now I do. Isn't that funny? I think it's funny. So it's basically going to say for each. So we can do that here probably too. Not the reverse. Can you not make it a for each? Maybe you need to do it here first. Nope. All right. So it's saying for each current row and skip. Wait. Row.skip.take. Oh. Interesting. So it's teaching us something here. Skip and take. I think skip and take are built-in members. All right. This way you are iterating over a subset of the row array, skipping the row n first elements and taking height elements, and then in each row you are iterating over a subset of the column array, skipping the column n first elements and taking the width elements. Another way to make it short is by using the link query to filter the elements you need. So this is going to be all right. Well, let's learn us a lesson here. Let's just see what if we type it out, what it looks like for each of our current row in row.skip row n.take height. And then interesting. This is new for me, this row and take thing. So it sounds like it's saying for current row is skip row n. Why would it be skipping row n though? I'm not sure. For each var current column in current row dot column dot skip column n dot take width. I don't know what this is doing, but we're trying to learn something. If the current column dot is filled, if it's not filled, then continue. Otherwise, if add game object to list found objects current column dot in game object and first object equals null, then first object equals current column. All right, what's this doing? That is not shorter. It's not shorter at all. All right, and so in my original here, we're saying for each row index and then column. So row left to right, column top to down. If the row column, so if that spot is filled, then we continue. And we're trying to get the items in the spot group, which is a spot area, really, I should say. Area, I think, makes more sense. And then if is filled, continue. Otherwise, add game. If add game object to list, so we must be. This is this. So let's just see. Add game object to list. List game object for each. Oh. This is just saying if it already exists, then ignore it. So that's we can skip that entirely. We can say if what is it? What's our list? See, I was not as smart then. I'm smarter now. What's our list? It's just called list. Found objects dot contains found in-game object. So if it contains the in-game object and first object is null, then we do something. Oh, wait a minute. I see. Okay. So add game does two things then, I guess. This does for each one. Let me add it. All right. So this was forget the first object thing for now. So if it doesn't contain it, then found objects dot add in-game object. So we're going to say var spot equals this and make this a little bit easier to read. And so if spot is filled, continue. If it contains the spot in-game object, then add the spot in-game object. So if it doesn't contain it, then add it. And then if first equals null, then we're going to add first object. Why is first object just first object? What is first object? It's an inventory spot. I don't know why we need that. Okay, so I'm not going to use ChatGPT's. And then we're going to return the first spot. So this is going to be first spot. Let's change it up here. First spot with object. That's what we're going to call it. And we can invert this, I suppose. Oh, we can do that. So this is basically saying if it's null, then assign it this. Otherwise, don't do anything. I like to do this sometimes. What does this mean? And then it'll tell us. See, it's used the null coalescing assignment operator, question equals, which is short for the following code. If it's null, then it should be assigned to this. Isn't that great? Because of ChatGPT, I've learned this symbol and now I use it, and it's so much easier to write this than to write all of that. Once you know what this symbol means, that is. All right, so this should be better. We can make this even better because I don't think the index is really, it's not used here at all. So we can make it a little bit better. I'm going to do it down here. For each var row in nah. Because what we're doing here is while row index is less than that, so we don't really have a group of it yet. So that's fine. We can keep it as such. But we can make it a little bit easier. We can say total or rows equal total rows equals row plus height, and var total columns equals columns plus width, I guess, and then total rows and total columns. Is that a little easier to read? Row I, column I, a little smaller. A little bit easier to read, maybe. All right, some notes here. Skip if the column or the spot is empty. Try to put the item in the list if it isn't already there. And then assign the first spot that had an item to this. All right. And then we're going to return the number of found objects and the first spot that add an object. Not sure why, but we do. All right, so that's a little bit more cleaned up. Put held item. All right, so where were we here? Populate the item. Existing items is 0 in an existing inventory spot, then fill those. If there are more than one items, then we can't put this down. Makes sense. Check to see if we can fit this in the spot, if not return. So spots can fit item. Row, column, existing inventory spot equals null. So we can probably clean this up as well. In-game object. Okay, and we can fit item. Row C and column C. I think that should be count. Or it should be N. Yeah, all right. Can fit item. Where was it? This was not what I was just working on. I don't remember where I was just working on. Put held item. Can fit item. There we go. So there's going to be row N and column N. All right, and ignore this object. All right, set up, cache the values for the height and the width. Return all spots are empty with that height and width. Ignoring this object. See, it's ignoring the first object because if there's only one object, then you can pick it up. You're just going to replace the two. Or rather, swap the two. So we ignore that. If it's null, then it doesn't matter. All spots are empty. All right, is going to do very similar. Row. So if the size is greater than the edges, then return false. And then we're going to do vars there. And this is going to be row I and column I. If they're filled, then okay, we're gonna do this as var spot equals that. So if spot's filled, or if the spot in-game object is null, then we return. So if it's filled, we continue. If we're not ignoring this object, so it is filled, or if it's not filled, we continue. If it is filled, and we're not ignoring this object, return false. Otherwise, if the in-game object is not equal to ignore this object, is these essentially the same thing? If this is null, then we're going to say if the in-game spot is not equal to this, to null, then return false. So these are basically the same thing, right? If it is ignore this object, then we return true. Or we just continue, really, just a continuation. All right, that should be fine. Why is this? Oh, because it's mildly complex. That's fine. Then we return true. All right. Can fit item. Row N. Column N. I feel like setup should be called somewhere else because I'm calling it everywhere, and that's probably like a bit of a hack in the end. Resize. All right, that's nice. All right, setup. Row clear. Row I. Column I. So we're adding the row and then adding all the spots and then saying setup's true. So that's just basically adding every single spot for the number of rows and columns that we have in this new thing. Relink. All right, we're relinking the item object. All right, let's see. Any bugs? Plenty more to do. No bugs. I don't think it's going to work, though. It might work. Let's see. If we look at our small button, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have those. All right, open it up. We have 2 helmets, 2 axes, and a chain armor. Okay, and we can't pick them up. So I don't know what's going on here. I don't know if we're being blocked by something else. Is okay, so it's just, this is, okay, got it. So each spot still has, oh. Okay, we're not, okay, I see. So when we load the data, we need to do additional stuff. All right, let me think. There's a few things we need to do. Game loot box demo. No, this is on the box manager. Where's our box manager? Right here. All right, load state. We're doing the spots are going to be the spots, and the inventory is going to be the inventory items. Maybe we just need to save it again with the right stuff. Spots should be fully serializable. Let's just see. I'm gonna have to resave here. New stuff, basically. Debug start. And then we will look at our stuff real quick. And so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, some armors, a couple mage staffs, a helmet. Sure enough, we can see it. It's all in the wrong spot, though. There's stuff all over each other. So this is clearly not working right. So, all right. In this one, we've got 4 things. And they're not working right. They're all over the place. And I think if we press play again, we might get different things. Yeah, completely different things. All right, so what do we need to do? Let's see. Let's go from the very beginning. Game loot box demo is a game loot box, and on awake, auto generate loot. We're auto generating loot. So let us do our debugging here. So we're going to be using static Infinity. I can't type or speak. Infinity PBR.modules.debugs. Debugs. Where is it? Static Infinity debugs. There we go. And at the bottom of this loot box, we're going to copy some code from the other stuff. What has it? Panel has it, I think. It does debug options. So we're going to copy this, put it into our... Where was he? Nope, not... Oh, yeah. I guess it was here. Oh, we have it in our box manager. We don't have it in our game loot box. All right. All right. That can all be cleaned up. Debug options. Right to console is false. Right to console color. I don't know what color it should be. We'll make it that color. No, that's too similar to all the other colors we've been using. Too dark. Alright, that's good enough. So game loot box can now write to console. And so we will do in our generate loot. We will say write to console, where we put in here generate this loot box generated loot box inventory.count. Oops. Is that not a list? It is. Count items. What else do we need here? We need our class name is game loot box, and color is write to console color, and boolean is write to console, and warning is false, and object is game object. All right. All right, so I'm going to see if we are generating it each time. If the generate was truly... Well, we never saved, so that's probably why it's going to generate each time. Okay, but I don't want to save it yet because that is why. So we should see a different color somewhere here. What color should we see? This kind of brownish color, brown green. I don't see it. Oh, I didn't toggle on right to. I have to toggle that on. That would make sense. All right, game loot box. This loot box generates 8 items. Well, that's good because there's only 5 in the list. So that's probably because it's doing all this stuff and it's messing up. Handle loot. So we're gonna change this into write to console, handling loot, generated loot. Do this right, and I guess we need to include it here using static Infinity PBR.debugs. This is going to be game loot box demo, and write to console color, write to console, and false, and game object. All right. And similar down here, we're going to say could not fit into the box. So if it generates 8, there's no way that 8 things can fit in this box, most likely. So 6 items, handling loot, 2 things could not fix in the box. So we got 4. But I think the issue is that when I open this, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're all over the place. So we got the 4, but they're not. They're all on top of each other. So there's a bit of code that says, does it fit? Add. So let's see. Add it to the list. Add loot box item to list. And yep, okay. And spots setup. Spot stop. Can fit item random spot. And we do 10 attempts just to kind of shuffle them all around. Hello, Bongi's creation. Let's see. Wouldn't you say you've gotten better on the code side at a super high rate over the last year or so? I follow you and the game dev crew. Oh, thank you for that. And you're really making strides. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, I've had a couple pauses in life. You know, my friend went through cancer last year and passed away in November, and that, you know, couple months leading up to that, I just didn't have the mental strength. I was there a lot helping out, and I didn't have the mental strength to focus on coding, so I skipped a bunch there. There was some time last winter that I was focusing on some other things that I had to do, and so I skipped there. But in general, when I'm, you know, this is what I do in my free time after the day job, and yeah, I've gotten better. I think I've gotten a lot of help from the Jasons, of course, and Uri and David. And other folks. I mean, folks here on the chat also help me out. ChatGPT is now helping me out. But yeah, I've certainly learned a lot, and I try my best to be very open to, you know, what Jason and Jason are talking about, and what Uri talks about, and what David talks about, because they know more than I do. And so oftentimes, especially like if you look at Jason Storey, the way he deals with things, and the few times that he's come on to the stream here, and we've talked things through, he, you know, you can, I realized later that he holds back a lot of the stuff because he knows so much, but he is able to identify the stuff that you need to know right now, and kind of lead you there without overwhelming you. And so, yeah, I think just staying open to trying new things, learning new things, and trying to remember what those things are. And the question equal symbol is one that I've been using a lot in the past week and a half. I didn't know it before that, maybe 2 weeks. And so I try to reuse things and try to always go through the scripts and you know, restructure them and fix them up and make them better. So yeah, thank you for that. I'm glad you're here, and glad you're getting benefited and you're benefiting from it. And I will do my best to not lead you astray, although I might from time to time lead you astray. So all right. So add to the list, and this is the box manager. So we're gonna do a debug here. We do a right to counsel if it can't fit in the industry. We do one if it can fit in the industry. Not industry, inventory. But it doesn't appear like we have it turned on. There we go. So let's turn that on and then see what we've got. So we should see it in between the blue ones. There we go. So this loot box generate 8 items, handling the loot. Ultimate power could fit in 0-2. Plate armor 0-4. Mage staff 0-0. Can't fit, and then that one fit in 1-2. So we should see a staff at 0-0. That's top left. We do. Do we see the helmet of ultimate power at 0-2? So this is going to be 0 across to, well, no, we don't see it. We just don't see it. It's not there. It's 1-2. Oh, I guess it's 0-1-2, so that's this one, I suppose. And then 0-4. So 0-1-2-3-4 is the plate armor. Yeah. So those three all fit, but this helmet at 1-1 could not fit. So it seems like it's not understanding that there's something else already there for one reason or another. So before we dig into that script, let's actually look. I should have done this. You gave a small talk? Nice. Well, good job. I've never minded talking in public. Well, when I was a little kid, I guess. But then I didn't later. All right, so... Okay, so we have a plate armor at 0-0. let's see. Do we have a plate armor at 0, 0? 0, 0. Game ID is this game ID. We're not assigning our list, and that could be part of the problem. All right, so let's make sure we assign the list. How about that? So box manager in our setup, row clear. Whoa. All right, that's the built-in clear. So row clear, and then for all the rows, row add an inventory. All right. So we're going to say for each of these, all right, we're going to say var new. Okay, let's do it here. Var new spot equals new inventory item spot. And then we're going to say that we're going to put that there. But then we're going to say new spot.inventory is going to be, oh, we're going to have to bring it up here. So game item object list inventory is going to be that. We're going to have lots of errors there. And we can do the object initializer. Yes, object initializer. All right, and then we add the new spot on the inventory spot. Do we need anything else? The game ID, no, that will be populated later. Is filled is automatic. The inventory is what we're doing now. The item uses the inventory. And game object, we'll come back to that later maybe. And we have the clear method there. Okay. All right, so now in setup, we need to pass in our inventory. So this is where we're going to figure this out. So the idea that I do setup in each one of these, that's a hack because sometimes it wasn't set up and I didn't know how to make it set up. So we're going to fix that now. And I think the reason why is that I didn't want users, i.e. me or you, to have to remember to do that. So I want it to automatically set up itself. So how are we going to do that? Let's see. So this is on the box manager. Let's look at the box manager. Box manager is just a regular old thing. It's not, I mean, all right, I guess we could do it on validate. No. Problem is, this is where you would actually change the numbers right here. I'm thinking. See, I always wanted to be a musician that could perform on stage, but that didn't quite work out. Oh well. In my car I can sing really good. How are we going to do this? So the idea is that spots needs to be populated. It's empty, it needs to be populated. And I think we're going to have to write an inspector script to check these. So let's try doing that right on validate. So we're going to do the game ID. That's perfectly fine. And then we're going to check spots. And protected virtual void check spots. And so what we're going to do is, if the rows and columns equal this number, then we're fine. It's going to be set up. So we return. Otherwise, we're going to do the setup process at this stage rather than at runtime, which is actually better, I suppose. So we're going to say if rows, if spots.rows does not or equals spots dot row dot count, and spots dot columns is equal to spots dot columns. How about this? We'll do a new method. If that times this, if rows times columns equals spots dot spot count, then return. And what is spot count, you might ask? Good question. It's going to be count spots. And in count spots, private void count spots, it's not going to be efficient. Maybe it will be later. It's not going to be void. It's going to be int. We're going to say for each var n row c row in rows in row row n in row for each var column n in row dot column row n dot column, and our I equals 0, I plus plus. And this is really just to make sure that these all have the same amount, because they might not, I suppose. So there's probably a better way of doing this. The writer might give me some suggestions. Let's see. There it is. So we're going to return. We'll do this and then we'll read it. All right. So row dot sum of row column count. So for each row, sum together the columns. All right. And that's the total spots. All right. So if our, now we can just return this instead. That's better. All right. That's easier. Spot count. So if our spot count is equal to our rows times our spots, however many you're supposed to have, then we'll return. Otherwise, setup. So we're going to use spots.setup. And we're going to pass in our inventory, which in this case is inventory items. And we're actually going to call false on the check here, because we want to definitely do it. And we're going to do a write to console here as well. And we're going to say there should be spots.rows times spots.columns spots, but we only found spots.spot count. We'll reload the spots object. All right. Let's see if that works. Let's see if there's errors. Did it not save? I think it may not have just saved. Yeah, there we go. Now there's even more errors. Haha. Oh, because we have all this set up. Okay, so we're we're going to just go through these and just comment them out. There's a lot of them. Oh man. Player inventories. Well, player dot inventory. What do we call it? Items. Inventory items. So, because in this case, you know, this is one of the demo scenes actually that it's going to be removed from the project, but this is good practice right now. Essentially, in this demo scene, the players each have their own inventory. We're not necessarily going to see it here. In fact, for these players, they're created at runtime, and since it's created at runtime, you do need to set this up. So. Yeah, must set this up as players were created at runtime. So this is something that will have to happen in more than just the... that's too bad. Oh well, it is the way it is, I suppose, but has to happen in more places than I had wanted it to happen. Why is there an error here? All right. Give held item, we will comment out. And loot box, we're just going to comment out most of these. And basically, if we run into issues, then we will figure out another solution. Where's this panel manager? Other panel spots set up. That's tough. So other panel should be calling this instead then. What's other panel? Other panel is a panel. So on panel, panel has spots. Yes. So we're going to do this public void setup spots, and this is going to be spots.setup, and pass in our inventory items, and then whoops, and then for panel manager, wherever that one was right here, other panel is just going to say setup spots. That way it will set up its own spots without having to know anything about it. That's really the way it should be. And even this should be like set UI camera. So other panel set UI camera to UI camera, and we can then not do that. And in this, we're just going to say UI camera equals UI camera value. All right. That way it does everything, handles its own stuff, you know. Let's see. The difference between performing guitar live and doing what I'm doing, streaming this, nobody ever throws their underwear at me while I'm streaming. That's the only real difference. My brother's a drummer, actually, and my friend who passed away, he was in my brother's band. He was their keyboardist, guitarist, and tambourine player, and he was a very fun-loving guy. And I met him through my brother, through his band, and he became my friend more than my brother's friend. Yeah, so I remember once a long time ago, back when we were young, they all their girlfriends and wives and lady friends got together and bought granny panties and threw them on stage when they were playing at this club in San Francisco, a rather bigger club. I think it was the Fillmore they were playing at for some reason, and that was a unique opportunity at the time for them, so they threw the granny panties on the stage. So that was something. So on resize, though, we can do the setup here. So what was the verify on validate? Oh, we don't do validate. That's going to be on box manager. Validate. Check spots. Yeah, so when does this come into play? When does resize ever come into play? It's never used. If it's never used, let's comment it out until we need it. How about that? Oh, the band name. They're not banned anymore. They used to be a band, but they aren't anymore. Back in the day, it was Farewell Typewriter is the name of the band. They're on the music streams and whatnot. All right, so let's see. Oh, it did work, by the way, over here. So let's make sure we have no errors. All right, and then let's see what happens if we do 6. There should be, we only found 48. Only 48. Okay, so it redid that. We can actually look to see how many elements we have. If we make this 4, it does. All right, so that part's totally working. This will now this will now do that. The problem will be for runtime things, though. Validate should only happen in the editor. Let's confirm. Does on validate only happen in the editor? I think that's the case. When the script is loaded or changed in the inspector. Oh, it is at runtime, but the behavior is slightly different. At runtime, it's only called when the script component is loaded. Interesting. This is something good to know. Okay, so to fix that, so that we don't want this running at runtime. So we're going to say if Unity editor and then end if. That way it will only check the spots in the editor. Ah, good. I'm glad you like them. All right, so let's see now. The list is empty. Let's see what happens when we press play. Let's see. All right, so we are able to put stuff in. We have something at 0, 1. And look at that. We've got some game IDs. Row 0, 1, indeed. So this is 0, element 1. which implies that we have our list. Let's see what happens when we load up. What do we have? 5 things. They are all on top of each other still. All right, so we still, that means, have an issue with the can fit thing. It's clearly not doing it right. And this isn't right. This must be missing a $$ sign. All right. All right, so why can't it fit? All right, handle loot, write to console. All right, add loot. Okay, spots can fit random item. All right, this is where the magic happens. And this is where, I mean, clearly it's saying both of these can fit at 0, 4. So that's not, yeah, that's not right. So let's just do a couple things. We're going to say row that and column that. Top left is 0, 0. Just as a reminder to myself and others. So clearly that can't happen because we can't have 2 things both at 0, 4. So it tells me that this can fit is broken. So I never updated this one. Oops. So let's update it. All right. Cache the values, height and width. So we're going to debug.log. Height is, so we're going to say object item object name. Height width is height width. All right. Fit attempts random row and height. All spots are empty. So we're going to say debug.log, checking spot random y slash random x, and we're going to say random row, random column. All right. And it might be this all spots are empty, but let's just go through and see what this says first, and then we'll go the next step. Let's see. All right. All these things. All right. Helmet is 2, 2, checking spot 0, 4. Helmet 2, 2. Wait a minute. Why is this doing it twice? Loot box generates 7 items. Handling it. Where are these coming from? Where we have a helmet, plate, armor, spear, axe, leather boots, helmet, spear. I don't see a plate, armor. Maybe it's because we have this one too. That's confusing things. All right, I'm going to turn this one off for now because that's going to confuse me. I want to see only one object. All right. This makes more sense. All right. Oh, because the other one's not printing out stuff. That's why we didn't see all this other stuff. But we just saw the debug logs either way. All right. 7 items were generated. So the checking spot 1, 0 should be then the helmet. Here, 1, 0. It's helmet. Why is it? Huh. That's interesting. Because the spot at 1, oh, this is 1, 0. I see. Yeah, 1, 0 should be this, but it's not, so it's being covered up by something else, it appears. 0, 3, row 0, column 3, row 1, column 0. Yeah, all right. Long spear. Could not fit long spear into the inventory box. Okay. All right. Yeah, it's all right. So those are saying it can fit, but it can't. It is checking for one thing's working, but not everything. So all spots are empty. Random row, random column, height, width. All right. So this is what's returning properly with the spear. The spear is very tall. It takes up the whole height, so it can't fit. We saw that earlier. I don't know if any of y'all were watching back then, but when I tried to put it in there, I was like, wait, it can't fit. It was just too tall for the small box. So that part seems to be working just fine. This part, however, is not, which I believe we did rework this. All right. Is this the issue? I did comment that out. Let's just check real quick. Thanks, Bongi's Creations. I actually won't be at the next one. I think I might not be able to make it, but we'll see. Maybe I will be. All right, it did stuff. There are a lot more checking, it seemed, than before. So let's just open small box. Interesting. Interesting. Let's try this once more. Press play. 5 things. Open it up. 5 things all separated nicely. Still get picked up, but interesting that it's not overlapped now, and we can see a whole lot more of checking. So the question is then, why the hell what's this code doing? Let's see. Let's ask ChatGPT. In this method, can you explain what this line means? In the code provide, the line is checking whether the variable is null or not. If it's null, the method immediately returns false. So, oh, duh. In-game object is null at this point. So, this is a runtime check, essentially, because at runtime, the spot will have an in-game object when it's visible. When it's not visible, it doesn't have an in-game object, and at this point, it doesn't. So we need to check if that's null. Duh. So if there's already a game object there, okay, so the spot's filled and we're not okay. Well, that's that. All right, next bug to fix is the fact that I am clicking and nothing happens. So let's load it, and we can actually see this on the in-game object. We should be able to see now in element 1.1. Interesting. In-game object is there. Game ID is null, though. Why is game ID null? Oh. So when we open it, something happens that makes it null. So that's a good clue, if you ask me. In fact, that's one hell of a clue. So what happens when we click it? When we click it, we call got clicked on the small box manager. Got clicked loot demo. Got clicked loot demo. So we try to overwrite loot, but we're not generating, or we try to generate loot, but we're not overwriting. So this is going to ignore in this context. And we're going to say, we're going to do a write to console here for this. And we're going to say UI button was clicked, calling got clicked loot demo. Okay. So we generate loot false, so we're not generating new loot. It's panel manager set other panel, create a panel. So we're gonna have to check on all these. So we're gonna look at set other panel and then set up other panel. So panel manager is going to be set other panel, panel manager create panel. Panel manager is a different script, a different class up here. We're going to just close the tabs to the right, clean this up a little bit. All right, so in our box manager, where was I? All right, so in a panel manager, set other panel, we're taking a new panel. We're setting active to be true. If there's no new panel, then we return. The other panel is now new panel. If it's not saying active, then we return. Otherwise, toggle other inventory panel active true. We don't need that. Toggle other inventory panel, and that means turn it on essentially or off. But other panel set active to active true. And then I'll keep this up here as well. And then if it's not active, return. Otherwise, if it is, then toggle player inventory panel false. And that's basically going to say the player inventory panel should turn off so they go back and forth. So essentially if your inventory is up and then you load up another one, say the chest, then your inventory goes away. Otherwise there would be two on the screen, so you can't do that. But then you can go back and forth between them. That's how you pass things. And this seems to do the exact same thing. Pretty much, just for the player. So that's something. All right. That seems fine. So set up other panel. Set up spots. This could be it. Spots set up inventory items. So this is where we want to do a bool here. Bool force reset force setup equals false. And so we're going to do this, but first if is setup or setup has setup buttons and not force setup, then we will return. Let me just make sure that has setup buttons means what I think it does. Awake has setup buttons as false. Setup area, populate inventory. Okay, we're gonna have to go through that. Set up buttons. So we do a check here on setup area. What's our thing that we're calling setup spots? Spots.setup. Interesting. Well, we just need to make sure that spots are being set up some other way. That's not. So, interesting. How are we going to do this? Do spots know if it's been set up? It does. All right, there we go. That's where we're going to do it. If spots dot is set up, and we're not forcing setup, we return, and spots setup is going to be returning is setup, or just setup is setup. Cancel. Underscore is setup. Cancel. All right, ignore that. Why is that not allowing me to change it? I see. It was because it was wanting to change this. Why is this underlined? Auto property. I don't want to make it an auto property. Alright, we'll make it an auto property. We can get it, privately set it, and it starts off as false. Alright. So now our panel will say if its spots is set up and we're not forcing them to return. Alright, let's see if that works. Alright, so we have our game IDs when we start. Yes. And then when we load it, they disappear still. Well, that's not fun. Alright, then debug.log set up spots. Maybe it's okay in a way, and we just need to do something differently. So in this case, nothing got put in the first spot. All right, so it's still getting set up. That means that spots.setup isn't getting set. So is setup equals true happens at the end of setup. So we call this on our check spots, which is our on validate. We call it on data player inventories, which we're doing on purpose for each of the players. Yes, why not use null propagation? Okay, and that's fine. And then the third time we do it is panel set up spots. Do we need to do it there? Set up other panel. Maybe we don't need to do this here. Let's make a note. Jan 24, 2023, Maybe we don't need to do this here, do this anymore. We'll see. It's possible that we just don't need to do it. All right, so we got our list here. The first one has indeed a game ID. We'll load it up, and now it has a small shield. And now we still can't click, but at least there is something there. And these are all in the right order. And this isn't being destroyed. So if we close it and open it, close it, open it, it's missing because it goes away. Open it, it comes back. All right, so that's great. Now, why can't we click? So actually, I should have just kept that up. So now when we look at this here, this is, by the way, what it actually looks like. See that? There's 3D objects. They're just orthographic. That's why the light is casting shadows. You can set up your inventory light how you'd like to do it, but of course, you can do all sorts of different ways. Oh, this is not the inventory light? It is the inventory light. Oh, I think the other light's having an impact on it. Let's see. Directional light. Yeah, this is probably, yep, doing everything, and we don't want to do it on that. There we go. And then our inventory light is here. And this is doing nothing. There we go. No? And what are these? These are UI inventory, inventory light, UI inventory. It's mode baked. That's not normal. What's going on? Directional real time. What if we do everything? Nothing all at once. Well, I don't know. Nope, I don't know what's going on. There. Anyways, that's not what I'm supposed to be looking at. What I'm supposed to be looking at is this inventory itself. The inventory area has all these grid buttons. And it's got the hovers and the pointer exits, start hover, stop hover, grid button, got clicked. All right, so we're going to do some debugging. So we're on the grid button now. Skinny this up a little bit. Grid button has a got clicked thing. And it's got a start hover and an end hovering. And we have a got clicked. Tell the panel we got clicked. Okay, and then we're going to put this as a row and column, and actually column N because that matches the other scripts. Update. If these haven't been assigned, then assign them. And that should happen at awake or start. So let's put these at start. Public void start. Reset these values. They will act upon late update. This is basically how it constantly checks every frame while it's up, just to see it's every frame it's saying it's false, and then it'll set to true if it is later. All right, set screen point, set the screen position of the button. I guess that's important in case it changes over time. It might, I suppose. So we do that here, I suppose. Set the tint of the button. All right. All right, let's see what this is doing. Set hover group. If we're not hovering, then return. If there's no on-screen item that's being held, return. If we're not showing a color on hover, then we return. Otherwise, get our height and width. If the height or width is less than 0, then return. That generally means an error, I suppose. And then for each button in get grid buttons, say this get buttons in area, designated by the start, and then height and width. We're just going to say buttons, those are in a hover group and true. If the panel compute can place on hover group, then return false. Otherwise, number of objects 0, and we do the same thing as we did. I feel like this is duplicated code, really, if I'm not mistaken. Items in spot area can place object. If the number of objects is 0, is above 1, then it's false. So we can start by saying this, and then we set it to here, and it's never used. It's used right here. So, no, let's just go back to where we had it. All right. Oh. Because we still check here. We're saying if the number of objects is greater than 1, then we can't place the object. But then we still check here. So this should really be else. Do this. All right, can place objects equals number of objects is less than or equal to 1, and all spots are empty. And if the first spot has an in-game object, then we pass that in as the one we're ignoring. All right. And then we can just say var that equals this. I'll make this all spots are empty right there. Okay. And then for each button in panel group get buttons in area, we repeat this. So var buttons equals that. So then for each button in buttons and each button in buttons. Oh. It knew what I was going to say. Grid buttons. grid button. All right. All right, so we cache this value, then use it here, and use it here, saying it's in hover group. And then if we're checking the spots, and then we can say can place hover group is going to be true or false. If it can place the object, true. Otherwise, it's going to be false. Okay. I don't think that solves any of our problems. It was still good to go through it all, mind you. But I don't think that's going to solve our problems. All of our woes. All right. Open small box. See, we're not getting the click button. I'm wondering if it's even like it seems to not be registering clicks at all, which could be the issue. I'm not sure. But earlier, when we had an item, like if we take a small axe, this part's working. So we can see it's gain our, so that all that checking is working. It knows that there's two things in there and I can't put it there. It knows I'm off the grid here. It knows that I'm off the grid down there. So I can put it here and then I can't pick it up. All right. Let's see what happens when I pick up another one and I replace. All right. That's a good, right here. Null reference. Existing inventory item spot item dot clone. So item isn't found. Item is inventory get by game ID. Okay, let's see. This is good. Well, I mean, it's not good, but you know what I mean, maybe. If there's already an item, we need to save it temporarily as a clone and remove it first. So that's basically saying, hey, there's already an item on the grid. So let's clone it. And then we're going to put down this thing and pick up the clone. And it's saying that the item is null. But let's check that. Debug.log. Item is null and item equals null. And we need the $sign. I always forget that. Oh, existing inventory spot. But we should also check this one. Debug.log is null. All right. Let's see if those are null. It could be the existing spot is null. I don't think that's the case, but let's just see. So let's just go ahead and pick up a short sword. Open the small box. All right. Item is null. Okay. So yes, indeed, the item is null. I shouldn't have stopped that because what we want to see is what's going on. Like, why is the item null? If we look at the small box, oh, good. We got plate armor in spot 0, 0. So if we look at this, we're going to find in 0, 0 plate armor with this game ID 0 EA. And then this is our list, plate armor, game UID 0 EA. So we do have it. Somehow it's not showing up. And I wonder if it's because this is the issue. Let's see. Debug.log items in inventory is inventory.count. I wonder if the inventory just isn't being set properly. That's my thinking right now. So let's try recreate, pick up short sword. Oops. Oh, throw the short sword against the wall. Pick it up. Open it up. Aha, okay. So the items in the inventory is 0. I was thinking about that because it kept looking like it was 0, but I was like, maybe it's just doing its thing. So Where do we set that? Where do we set that? This is going to be on Box Manager. Inventory items. Set up inventory items. And we are saving things properly, right? Serialized field. Okay. Spots.setup. Inventory. Game item object list. Inventory equals game item object list. Huh. All right, I think we need to do it slightly differently. Somehow this isn't saying, let's just do something here. We're going to add the new spot there. Then we're going to say debug.log. Inventory is null. And we will say row I dot column last one dot inventory equals null. So let's see if we can just make that happen. So it's saying the inventory is not null, but I think like if we just, can we not make this bigger? Interesting. Why can't we make this bigger? I don't know why. All right. All right, we need to get a reference to this inventory without passing it like we've been doing it, because apparently that's not working. Good work on your game. I like that. Maybe not later this week. I'm going to visit my friend up there, and I'm hopefully, knock on wood, going to be buying a house up there and moving up there if things work out. They have to work out, because if it doesn't work out, then I can't afford the house because I'm not rich. Yeah, so the point is I might not be able to stream later this week. Tomorrow's going to be a super long day, and then Thursday I'm going to be up there. So maybe on Sunday is my guess. So see you, Tech Dave. Thanks for joining. All right, I think I'm actually going to be taking a break because I also need to just take a break. It's been about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So I think what I need to do, the reference is being lost at some point. It's set, but then it's lost, and so it's not finding the inventory. And without the inventory, well, we don't have anything. So what I need to do is have a reference to this, and I think, well, I just don't know actually. I need to figure that out. I think I might do I have spots or something like that, like an interface. But I've been having troubles serializing those and keeping those references in place. So I need to figure out why this is either being unlinked or something. Yeah. Because these are clearly unlinked. I don't know what's going... Oh, now I can add there. All right. So we got two. Let me just test something though. All right, so we can see it being linked here, but if I... Oh, and once... Interesting. Then once it's set, I can't change it. All right, yeah, so I'm doing this wrong, in other words. All right, so I got to figure that out. Me too, Tech Dave, me too. I probably will. Just need to not lose my day job and not buy anything big and not have a giant earthquake knock it down before it's finished being built. And then I need to make sure that somebody rents out that ADU. There's an ADU on the property. Somebody's going to have to rent that out because I can't afford the house otherwise. It costs more than I get paid. My day job. More than my take-home pay. So if somebody doesn't rent it out, I am screwed. But somebody will probably rent it out. But that's my first goal. Because otherwise, I can't afford it. And even then, I think I might need to rent out some rooms because after renting that out, I'm still not going to be able to afford much of it. And I need to buy furniture because I don't have anything but this desk and the big white thing behind me full of games. And the chair that I'm sitting in. That's my furniture. Anyways, fun times. It should be very exciting, and then I'll have a cooler background. Join that club. So yeah, I'm gonna try to figure out why the hell I can't do this right. I need to figure out some way to reference this list through here, one way or another, and then yeah, and then we should be okay. But I think the panel manager, maybe. If the panel manager knows what inventory it's referencing, it's holding. ADU, accessory dwelling unit. Basically, it's a 600 square foot, 1 bedroom, 1 bath with a garage, full kitchen, full bath, but very small place. And so they say it's a lot of people are changing the 1 bedroom into 2 by changing the garage, so I might do that too. And then it's apparently worth more. And then apparently people want to rent that, and that makes sense. It's going to be fully furnished, no utility costs, so it's just an easy, like, I need to live somewhere for 6 months type of thing, and I don't want to worry about utilities and all that. So, accessory dwelling unit. Oh, yeah. So we'll see. It should be fine. And if it's not, then, I don't know, figure something out. Play it by ear. But for this, I think the panel might be the trick, because in the context of when I need to use the inventory, the panel is up, right? So the panel manager is only ever going to show 1 inventory, but will there ever be a chance to show 2? That's a good question. Well, I need to find a non-hacky way of doing it, essentially. And maybe the panel manager... I mean, the panel manager has the player inventory panel. I guess every panel... It's not the panel manager, it's the panel itself. A panel itself should know what inventory it belongs to. And this shouldn't be here. Alright, I'm going to take a short break. I'm going to cut the stream off, but I'm going to take a short break, and I think what I'm thinking is that this inventory object should just be a reference to the inventory that we are loading, but I don't know. This is a list of game objects, so this is the in-game object. Anyways, I still think this should reference that list, and then we can pull from that, the active panel, I think. We'll see. That's what I'm going to do when I come back, but I want to thank you all for hanging out and participating, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't liked and subscribed already, and I will maybe stream again on Sunday. I don't know if I'm coming back on Saturday or Sunday. If I'm not too tired, then I'll stream on Sunday. Yeah, all right. Thanks. Have a great day or night.